The hardest part about finding a job is not going through React hooks or optimizing your app or building another app. It's opening your emails and not being sure whether there's going to be an opportunity. It's opening LinkedIn after sending so many job applications and not knowing if there's going to be a good news. If you're feeling this way, first of all, I want you to know you're not alone. This video is for you. If you are feeling frustrated solving questions over and over again and sending LinkedIn requests and not hearing back from anybody, in this video, I am going to give you a system to help you apply for jobs and land that job. The truth about job search is that the developers who get the jobs are not always the one with the most experience. They are the ones who have a system to apply for jobs, and they continue to do that with discipline regardless of how they're feeling in the moment. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to give you that system. We're going to take a look at exactly how to prepare not random questions, but a systematic approach, how to tailor your resume for the job that you're applying to, how to reach out to people without feeling that you're begging, and how to use AI to your leverage. Let's get into it. If you've been laid off or if you've been job searching for a while, the first thing I want you to remember is that whatever you're feeling right now is completely normal. Whether it is anger, disbelief, embarrassment, shock, it is completely normal. Give yourself a few days to process it. Take 2 to 3 days off, maybe a week if you need it. Take a trip if you want to. Spend time with your loved ones, with your family members, with your friends. Take this time to reset. But here's what I've seen that happen sometimes. Someone loses a job, they take a few weeks break to reset, few weeks become few months, and before you know it, it's been 6 months, the market has moved on, their confidence feels low because their skills are rusty. Don't let that be you. Take a few weeks off, but get right back into it. And remember, just because you've been laid off doesn't mean that you do not have the skills or the talent. You got hired once, you can get hired again. Remember, you don't need to have it all figured out just yet. You just need to start. So let's get started. So here's a system that works for people who are able to crack their interviews. You gotta spend 1 hour each day on actual front-end problems, not random questions, not LeetCode. If you're doing front-end, you just gotta do front-end questions. I'll show you a list of front-end questions in a bit, but this has to be specific to the job that you're applying. An example of these questions are JavaScript questions like implementing debounce, implementing promise. If any of these feels unsure or you feel like there's a gap in knowledge, this is the time when you brush up on those skills. Next hour, focus on React skills. Again, focus on fundamentals first and then implement questions. So in this, you're going to implement user interface questions such as building an accordion, building a tabs component, building a star rating component. I'm going to show you these questions as well in just a second. When you're practicing these questions, you got to set a timer of 25 minutes. I do not recommend going more than 35 minutes for any question because in the real world scenario, the interviewer is likely going to only give you 30 to 45 minutes to answer a question. So set a timer. At the end of that 25 minutes, it's time to stop your pen and review answers. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, especially if you've not been able to solve questions, but the key to successful practice is not to just keep banging your head until you find the solution, but to practice, review, practice again. Practice it, review where you went wrong and review what you could have done better and review where the gap was. If you find out a gap in knowledge, review that fundamentals. Once you've reviewed that, come back to practicing another question, not the same question. We're not memorizing answers. We are understanding concepts. Practice another question, maybe in the same pattern. For example, if you're doing arrays, do another question in array. 25 minutes, solve that question, review the answer, see if there's any optimization you can make. Practice another question. Here's the problem that I've seen most people make. You open a coding site like LeetCode and then you just start practicing whatever random question pops up if it looks good. That's not preparation. That's just procrastination disguised as productivity. You want a system to attack problems one topic at a time, and once you've covered the breadth of topics in front-end, then you can go deep into each of these sections. I've created a free React guide for you where I've listed every single topic that is going to be asked in a front-end interview. I highly recommend you check this out. It's a free guidebook and you can find the link in the description. The most common topics in front-end are JavaScript fundamentals, closures, DOM manipulation, calling an API, fetching that data, rendering it on the page. You could use React for that. They could also ask you to do it in vanilla JavaScript. Event loop, implementing your own promises, debounce, throttle. I cover all of these topics in the free guidebook, so you can check that out. The next part is to implement system design questions like design a typeahead, design Netflix, design YouTube. You want to do a few of those questions. Now, there is a site that I absolutely love for front-end interview preparation, and that is called Great Frontend. This is the site that I use for my technical interviews. So I'm going to walk you through how I practice interview questions when it's my interviews. This is Great Frontend, and I'm in all practice questions section. This is where I would recommend that you start. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description below. Just a heads up that it's an affiliate link. If you choose to use that link, I do get a little bit of kickback. Thank you so much for your support for that. But here's how I would practice. First thing that I would do is that I would go through array. I would do 1 to 2 questions on array. I'll always start off with an easy question. That just helps me develop confidence. And once I have done 2 to 3 easy questions, I will then move on to medium questions. Here's what I would recommend. You can sort these questions by their importance in the order of high to low. And these are the questions you must definitely practice. So you can practice 5 to 10 questions in here. These are a mixture of medium to easy questions. Why they're important is because these are the most commonly asked questions, like balanced brackets kind of question and finding element in a rotated array, find missing number in sequence. These are the questions that I have most commonly seen in interviews. Do 5 to 10 questions in each of these categories. So I like to go from data structures and then to algorithms. So I'll do array, then I'll do strings, which I find the easiest to do. After that, you can go to graphs. You can then go to any of these linked list, recursion, sorting, and the other algorithms. So I kind of approach it from a data structures perspective, starting from the easiest, and then progressively making it harder. Now, this is just practicing data structures and algorithms, okay? Then the next step I do, especially if I'm preparing for a front-end interview question, is to go through user interface coding questions. And I will do all of these user interface questions. Progress bar, again, is one of the most commonly asked interview questions. So is accordion. Another way to tell that a question is commonly asked is by checking how many people have done it. Usually the ones that have a high number of people doing it are the ones that are commonly asked. And so do a few of these front-end interview questions as well. This is where you can actually test how to build a component, in this case in accordion, and how to write the JavaScript for it. Now, you can use React to do it, or you can simply use JavaScript, plain JavaScript as well. I also recommend going to JavaScript functions, clicking on sort by, importance high to low, and these are the most common JavaScript questions as well. So again, data merging, data selection, debounce, deep clone, flatten, promise all, throttle, use query, array add, array concat, filter. These are questions you can be guaranteed to see in a JavaScript interview questions, whether you are front end, back end, full stack. So highly recommend that you go through these questions. I have seen these questions so many times in my interviews. Once you've done those, then the next bit also has these LeetCode type of questions in here. So they are called algorithmic questions. I do practice these a little bit as well for front end interviews. However, my focus is usually on user interface coding and JavaScript functions, especially if the recruiter has told me that it's going to be a practical JavaScript based interview. I have been getting a lot of requests for mock interviews, and in order to help you with mock interviews, I've decided to write a book, 50 common interview questions that I have seen in JavaScript and React interviews. This is going to be available on the link below. You can sign up to be notified when that book is ready. This book will contain the 50 most common questions asked in interviews that I have personally seen, but also the way I would approach these questions in an interview. This is coming straight from my personal experience. I have been both an interviewee and also an interviewer. I wish I had this book when I was applying for front-end interviews, so I'm hoping that this book is helpful for you. I hope you go through this book, practice each of those 50 questions, and I hope you land your next interview. Again, find the link in the description. Now, after you've practiced JavaScript and React interview questions, do not forget to do system design interview questions as well, especially if you're applying for senior to higher level positions. So I'm going to show you one system design interview question, and let's walk through how we're going to implement this. This is an autocomplete feature. This is a really great question because this can be both asked as a system design interview question and an implementation question. So let's walk through the system design aspect of this. I also highly recommend that you try out how to implement this by thinking about after doing the system design. Now, the question is design an autocomplete UI component that allows users to enter a search term into a text box. A list of search results appear in a pop-up and user can select a result. And some real-life examples is in Google, you have the search thing. So the component is generic enough to be usable by different websites, and the input field UI and search results should be customizable. The first thing that should come into your mind after reading this question is, one, this is going to be a design systems component, so you have to think about how to make this component reusable. You must also think about what kind of inputs are going to be allowed and what is the behavior that you would want this component to do, which is, should it be stylable? Should people be allowed to read what's the input inside it? And should it be mobile friendly? Should it be only on desktop? So this question is generic and is vague for a reason. It gives you some answers like input field UI and search result should be customizable, but what does customizable mean? That is the question that you have to find out. As soon as you get this question, think about what assumptions are you trying to make, like for example, styling, design systems, and get those verified by your interviewer. For example, here it says what kind of results should be supported, text, image, media, what devices will this component be used on, do we need to support fuzzy search? So those are some great questions to ask. Then before we even look at the answers, I would actually recommend that you set a timer for 30 minutes, solve this question yourself, and then look at the answer. Now, something cool about Great Frontend is that it talks about how to approach a system design interview question. This is what I studied in my system design interviews as well, which is the radio format. The radio format means talk about the requirements, explore what the missing questions are, and explore what assumptions you're making. You talk about a high-level architecture. Once you talk about a high-level architecture, now this is from a front-end perspective, not a back-end perspective. You talk about how components will work together, and you ask your interviewer if you want to dive deep into one of the entities. Then the next bit is once they have figured out where to talk about, or if you just say generally talk about everything, then you talk about data model. And this is where you talk about what inputs come in, what outputs go in, what the data looks like, what the API interface would be like. And then finally, you dive deep into the API interface, which is this is the data that we're going to be sending to the backend. This is what the mock data would look like. And then finally, you can talk about optimizations, which is, well, let's say that there's a search field. This is how many inputs there could be. This is how we scale this component. And this is how we're going to deploy this component. This is how we think about caching. So this radio architecture or this radio format is actually a really great way of approaching a system design interview question. So I highly recommend that you go through this system design guidebook here. I'm going to leave a link to Great Frontend at the bottom as well, and the system design format as well. So highly recommend that you check this out. But going back to our autocomplete question, the next bit is to explore the requirements and coming up with an architecture. So in this architecture, we talk about the autocomplete component, but also what other components are going to be part of this. Because this is a system design systems component, most likely, you also probably will be importing other design system components as well. So you got to think about what other reusable components you're going to have. And then finally, thinking about the data model, which is the controller layer, which is where we have props coming in and the current input field and how we're going to cache this. And the interface, the API definition, which is how many number of results you want to show, what is the API URL you want to hit, what are some event listeners you want to support. And then finally, we can dive deep into the optimizations, which is handling concurrent requests, retrying if some items failed, and caching. So this radio format is something you got to keep in mind when approaching system design interview questions. Try a question out yourself and then look at its answer. All right, step 3. You've practiced, you're ready, but until your resume actually gets noticed, what are you going to do with all the preparation? So now let's fix your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Now, most resumes get rejected before a human even sees them. Application tracking systems, or ATS, review keywords and formatting, and recruiters spend about 6 seconds on each resume. So your resume needs to not only have the right keywords, but also look good. First up, tips for ATS. Strip out any fancy formatting, strip out your photos, strip out any icons, anything graphical, anything that is not a text, strip it out. Your resume needs to be simple and clean. And keep it one page unless you're a staff level or above and you have tons to show for your experience. Second, this is the biggest mistake I see in resumes. Replace responsibilities with results. For example, don't write responsible for front-end optimization and improving performance. Instead, write Improve performance by 40% by implementing code splitting, caching, lazy loading, or whatever you did. Also remember, do not lie in your resume. These numbers can be a rough estimate of what you did, but they need to be accurate enough that they reflect the actual work that you've done. And third, make sure that your resume is AI ready by looking at the actual job description and picking out keywords from it and adding that to your resume. For example, if I was applying for this job as a front-end engineer too, one of the things that they ask for is that you'll be designing and developing front-end experience in React for both employees and HR teams. Build scalable, responsive, and accessible UIs that support global enterprise deployments. Collaborate closely. Implement reusable design systems and component libraries. Ensure code quality and reliability. So if I'm tailoring my resume for this, I would make sure that I use some of these keywords, which is collaborated with cross-functional teams, build scalable systems, designed and developed front-end experiences. I want to make sure that my resume is as close to this job description as possible. Again, we do not want to lie in our resume. However, most people's experience is closer to the job description than their resume shows. So make sure that your resume is tailored to the job that you're applying. One way to do this is by copy pasting this description in Claude or ChatGPT and uploading your resume and asking ChatGPT to tailor your resume according to this job description. Now, some of the prompts that you can use to improve your resume are: rewrite this bullet point to be more impact focused. What keywords am I missing for a senior front-end engineer role, and paste the description in there. How well do I align with this job description? Give me a rating on 1 to 10. Speaking of resumes, I regularly host resume review on this channel, so you can find the links at the bottom. And if you're watching this real time, we have resume reviews coming up on this channel on Thursdays, so you can find a link to those as well. Make sure you send your resume so a real recruiter can review your resume on the stream. This is completely free of charge. And let's talk about your LinkedIn profile. Whatever polishing you do in your resume, the same kind of skills apply to your LinkedIn profile as well. Your LinkedIn profile should show your current job, your projects that you've built, and also you got to make sure that you're active on LinkedIn. So if you're applying to jobs, make sure that you're sharing some of the things that you're learning as a blog post. If you have a newsletter, you can keep sharing posts from that. It could be anything that you've learned recently. It could be anything that you improved. It could be a new library you picked, or it could be a web project that you're building. You got to make sure that you're showing recruiters and potential hiring managers that you're somebody who is actively involved in the community. Speaking of LinkedIn, another great thing to show in your portfolio is your GitHub. Now, you don't need 10 projects. You need one project that is built from beginning to the end, where you have experimented with different things, have learned new things. Especially if you're working with React, something that you definitely want to show is state management, calling an API. If you're applying for a job that is AI adjacent, you also want to make sure that you have integrated with LLM models and you can build an AI application. Make sure that your README is clean. It has instructions to set up. It has a tech stack. You can also get Claude to write the README for you. But think of GitHub as your storefront. You want to show projects that you're working on, that you have built, that you have taken from start to finish. Even if it's a project that is work in progress, you want to put down to-do list of what you're working on and what you have done. Make it easy for somebody to understand the projects and the tech stack that you work on and you're comfortable with without having to dive deep into your projects. And now let's talk about networking. Networking is such an important part of job searching and one that people often overlook because it is uncomfortable. And I totally agree. However, most jobs are given through referrals and do not ever end up on a job listing page, which means that talking to real people is the most effective way of finding a job. And this is easy to do. You probably have connections today on LinkedIn who are hiring. First thing, reach out to somebody in your connections and let them know that you're looking for a job in this field. It's even better if you've done the homework of actually looking up a job posting in their company. Give them a link to that job posting and share your resume and ask them if they'd be willing to refer you. I have seen so many times when people reach out and send a LinkedIn connection request with absolutely no words. There is no text, there is no hello, there is no context. I am telling you, if this is how you are reaching out to people, they are most likely to ignore your connection. So if you reach out to somebody who's not in your connections, make sure that you share them where you know them from, a context of how you got to know about them. For example, if you are sending me a LinkedIn request by watching this video, I want you to write in the text that you learned about me through this YouTube video. I am more likely to accept your LinkedIn request if it has some form of message of where we met or where you know me from. And the same thing applies for recruiters as well. If you're applying for a job and you know a recruiter from that company, send them a request asking them if they'd be willing to connect with you because you're interested in a job posting in their company. Much better way of connecting with somebody than just a plain LinkedIn request with absolutely no context at all. Those will most likely get ignored. I'm definitely ignoring them. And finally, you can hang out at Discord groups, Slack groups, and local meetups where people are actually hiring and looking for jobs. Here's the link to our Discord group where you can come and hang out with other people who are also looking for jobs. So we have a lot of interview prep resources, but we also connect you to interviewers and recruiters as well. And finally, if you reach out to somebody who you know, don't just send them a message saying, hey, let me know if you know anything. Ask them specifically what you're interested in. If you've done the homework of actually looking up a job in their company, amazing. But if not, tell them exact job title that you're looking for. And here's a template that you can send. You can say, hey, the name of the person, and you can say, I'm currently exploring new front-end opportunities and actively preparing for interviews. I would love any lead on teams that you think I should talk to, or if you know anyone hiring front-end engineers, I would appreciate an introduction. Happy to share my resume if helpful. And now finally, here's a 4-week plan you can implement right now. And this is the system that I recommend following if you're looking for a job. Week number 1, foundation. Number 1, we're going to work on our resume and LinkedIn profile in this week. We're going to practice JavaScript fundamentals and we're going to practice React fundamentals. And we're going to update our GitHub with 2 to 3 projects that we've done in the area that we're looking a job in. So if you're looking for front end, then you want to showcase skills of React, state management, JavaScript, CSS, React data fetching, calling an API, state management, using Zushtan, Redux, any state management library, using a CSS preprocessor or Tailwind. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn portrays the kind of jobs you're looking for. That is week number 1. Week number 2, start practicing coding problems. Now that we've already brushed up our fundamentals, we're going to start doing questions. Do at least 5 questions a day, 10 if you have more time. Then create a list of 20 companies that you're interested in. Number 3, find at least 10 people in your network who you can reach out to ask for a referral. Week 3, continue to do more questions. If you've been doing 5 questions a day, pick up your pace to 10 questions a day. If you've been doing 10 questions, pick it up to 20. Number 2, send 10 messages this week to somebody in your network. And number 3, apply to 10 to 20 jobs. Week number 4, move on from easy medium questions to medium hard questions. Reduce the amount of time it takes you to practice those questions. So if you've been setting a timer for 35 minutes, turn it down to 25 minutes. If you've been setting a timer for 25 minutes, turn it down to 15 minutes. And in this week, also do mock interviews. We do mock interviews in our Discord as well. So if you're interested in doing mock interviews for absolutely free, the link of our Discord is bit.ly/ShrutiDiscord. Absolutely free. And in this week, we also refine what's been working and figure out what's not been working and continue to refine the process. And so this is your 4-week plan of applying to jobs and preparing for interviews. However, just remember, job search takes time. Typically, it takes 2 to 4 months to get a job. You may lose the motivation towards the end, but if you follow this system of 4 weeks at a time, you're going to be able to continue applying for jobs, keep refining what you've been doing, and keep building on your fundamentals and your interview skills. And here's what I want you to remember. If you've been laid off or if you've been looking for a job for a long time, you're not starting from scratch. Employment gap doesn't mean talent gap. The job market has its ups and downs. I have been rejected by companies so many times. Most of the times, a rejection has nothing to do with your talent. Sometimes the time is not right, sometimes the budget is not right, and sometimes there's just a candidate who has more experience than you have. You do not have control over the interview process, but you do have control over how you respond during this process. So pick one thing from this video and do it today, whether it is just updating your LinkedIn or just sending a LinkedIn request to somebody. And if this video helped you, first, give this video a big thumbs up so other people can find it. And secondly, share it with at least one person so they can benefit from this video as well. We can do this together. You're not alone in this. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.